Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a physical therapist with Origin Rehab, and this is Trevor. He'll be our assistant today. So, for today's mobility check, we're going to talk about the shoulder this time. So, with our shoulder, it's one of the most mobile joints in our body. So, our shoulder can move in all these different ways, but sometimes we have a lot of different pathologies that can happen with the shoulder. We can test different ways of shoulder mobility, going straight forward in the flexion, there's abduction out to the side, there's also rotation, but we don't really move that way naturally throughout day-to-day life. For example, Trevor, can you show me how you would wash your hair? Okay, can you show me how you would put on a seatbelt? How about putting on a belt? How about taking off a jacket? Yep, so there's all these different ways that we move where we hardly ever just use mobility in just one single direction like that. It's always big, different dynamic directions like that. So one way we can really test mobility in that way is something called the Apley maneuver. And so how we do that is I'll have Trevor turn around, yep, and then I'll have him take his right arm and I'll have him bend it behind his head and try to touch his opposite shoulder aid with his hand. Then I'll have him bring this other arm up and see if he can touch his hands. So right here, that would be considered good shoulder mobility because he's able to reach back with this hand, reach up with this hand, and touch his fingers. So that would be considered normal. Now, if he switches and does the opposite, you can see how there's this big gap here. So that would show that there's a little bit of restriction, whether it's this shoulder going in this direction or this shoulder going in this direction. This side's not quite as mobile as the other side. You can even do it one side at a time if that's too hard, where you just reach back with this hand or reach up underneath with this hand and measuring how far you can get, and then doing it with the other side if doing both at the same time is too difficult. There you go, thanks. And so looking at that really shows us the combination of movements. So we get that flexion, we get that rotation and abduction to get the arm out here versus doing it in single planes. A lot more functional way to tell how your body's moving day to day. When you have some sort of restriction, for example, I'll have you turn around and do it again for me. Yep. So this side has some restrictions. So depending on where there may be pain in this shoulder or tightness, there can be different structures involved. That's not to be confused that it means it's only coming from the shoulder. There could be some restrictions in the shoulder itself, but there could be restrictions in some of the muscles that connect the shoulders. There could be some restrictions with the muscles that connect the neck to the collarbone up here, or even if you spin around for me, the muscles in the front of the chest that allow you to turn the arm in like this. So there's all these different ways that there could be restrictions, whether it's the rotator cuff muscles or the joint, different things like that. But the first step would be testing your mobility. It's something you can do at home just like this to see where you may be having pain, tightness, restrictions. And based off of that, we can work on different exercises and mobility things that will help to correct that. So for example, I could have Trevor come in and do exercises that move the arm in this way if we find that this is the motion that he's having restriction in. And then over time, we can measure and see if we're getting progress with how far you can move, and really wanting to focus on making both sides equal. And that's just a way we can start approaching regaining functional mobility in a more applicable way to everyday life. So if you find that you're struggling with this or have any sort of shoulder problems, we'd love for you to come in and we can look at those things with you and see if we can get you back to moving better.